Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by our co-host, Michael Cohen. We've got a lot to discuss. We'll talk about Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, showing up at the White House. Donald Trump giving him $20 billion in a bailout while 20 million Americans are about to lose their health care. We might as well just put that $20 billion in a incinerator. The Argentinian stock market was basically plummeting today while this meeting was taking place, on statements being made by Donald Trump that if Milei's party doesn't win, America's not going to stand behind Argentina, and other forms of election interference. Their markets did not like that. But you might as well just kiss that $20 billion goodbye. And I think it's important that we look at it in the context of this government shutdown. 20 million Americans losing health care, $20 billion to Argentina.
Could you imagine if China or Russia actually politically interfered in the election of, say, Argentina? Could you imagine how Trump and the administration would be screaming right now, this is political interference. It's interference. But somewhere along the line, because this administration is doing it, all of a sudden it's justified. How is this any different, Ben, than Russia paying these bots within which to attack Kamala Harris or anybody else for that matter?
No, it is. And it gives a license to other countries to say, Trump is attacking Venezuelan fishing boats against international law. We can go and do X, Y, and Z. America's interfering with elections. We should be able to ratchet up, and that is the world and a new world order that we're in when you remove the order where the United States was trying to support democracies and support fairness. And again, not to suggest that United States is some innocent actor historically in its position as a leader of the free world. Let me be very clear. There's a lot to be kind of critical of, but that's for a whole other conversation. At least aspirationally and leadership-wise, there was a sense of stability that frankly no longer exists in this multipolar world where the U.S. is just one polarity and a fairly weak one of that. But Cohen, that brings us to an issue that I think is important that we discuss. Just because Donald Trump is doing it, why does all of a sudden the way we report things, the way not we here at the Midas Touch Network, but a collective we that excludes us, why are things reported so differently? And look, when we talk about what transpired in the Middle East this week, when we talk about what has happened with the return of these 20 hostages, which is a great thing that these 20 hostages have been returned. It is a great thing that there could be a ceasefire. I want to be clear. That's a good fact that there could be a ceasefire. But we know historically in this region, Cohen, that there have been lots of ceasefires that have existed for short periods of time that have been broken. There has been a history of war that kind of continues. And when you actually looked at what was taking place, to me, you have our corporate news following Donald Trump's playbook as he was like spiking the football. He made it into a party for himself. His speech in front of the Knesset, to me, was a very harmful speech, talking about pardoning Netanyahu, talking about how we give you the weapons. We don't like to use them, but you get to use the weapons. The way he talked about why the embassy is in Jerusalem because Miriam Adelson gave him money. The Adelson showed up more than anybody.
$100 million.
Yeah,
I was there.
I
was there. I mean,
you were there during the meeting?
Yes. You don't get better inside info than when you and I, Ben, are speaking. I was there. It was actually the Hanukkah party at the White House in 2017. And I remember we were sitting, Sheldon was in the wheelchair, and Miriam was wheeling him around. And Trump, of course, came over to me, and he was talking, and the Adelsons were literally sitting directly next to me. And it was right after the speech. And she turned around, and they were saying that we really want to see the embassy move. And Sheldon turned around and said, and I will pay for the whole thing. And he did. And that's exactly why and how it moved. Now, obviously, Jews around the world are extremely pleased with that move for the purpose of now legitimizing the fact that that is the capital now of Israel, because it's generally the capital where you have the embassy. Great. But I'm with you. I'm not upset that they moved a building, but I'm not sure that moving a building from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv is actually going to be the catalyst for a peace treaty or bringing stability and peace to the Middle East. It was just something Sheldon wanted to see before he passed. And he got his wish. You know why? Because in this country, money will buy you anything.
So let's talk about, though, let's make this basic, because sometimes, many times, the way corporate news reports abstracts, and sometimes the simplest facts are not discussed. So Michael Cohen, when there is a deal, right? When there is a deal, like we're not talking about this deal, but a deal in general, what usually, assume there are two parties, what usually happens in a deal for it to be effectuated? What usually happens? Like what has to take place?
Well, the signing of a document, certainly,
By?
for sure, that by both parties, right?
Okay.
So, there's in law, there's something called a contract. In essence, that's what this would be. It's the manifestation of the willingness of two parties to enter into an agreement, signed and executed by each party.
So one would think that at the most basic
I'm trying not to think, Ben. This is
at the
political
most
beatdown.
basic
We're
level
just
here,
trying not to think here.
if we're going to call this a deal between Israel and Hamas, well, surely Israel signed it. Did they sign it? Did they sign the deal, Cohen? I don't think they did.
I didn't see any signed, executed.
And did
deal.
Hamas sign the deal? No, they didn't sign the deal. So who signed the deal? Egypt? Okay. Qatar? Okay. The United Arab Emirates? Huh? The United States? Okay. So are you telling me
Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon? Yeah, sure. They all, Italy, they all
now
signed
also
this
there
deal.
were two sets, and they weren't deals. They were statements of intent. That's kind of something that we see with Trump often. So let's be clear. Israel, Hamas never signed a peace deal. How, when corporate news talks about it, they don't report that? Like, that's probably the biggest freaking fact out there. Then, in terms of this kind of letter of intent, there are different versions that Israel would say that we like and that the Arab nations like, right? In the Israel version, Hamas totally disarms. In the Arab version, Hamas doesn't disarm. They just don't add to their arsenal anytime soon. In the Arab version, Hamas doesn't totally go away. In the Israel version, Hamas kind of goes away. So already you have different, you have no deal.
Sure.
You have different letters of intent. And then what would be, Cohen, the most fundamental issue about Israel and Palestine? Like, if you were to talk about,
first of all, there's a few. One is whether it's going to be continue to run as it is now, occupied by Israel, or it becomes a two-state solution. That's the first. Number two, another big issue in this 20-point plan is what you just said, which is the mandate that Hamas demilitarize, that they turn over all their weapons. Now, somewhere along the line, and Ben, I'm with you 100% here, you have this mainstream, lamestream cable news bullshit media with idiots with very fancy titles in the Chiron turning around and saying, well, that's going to take place or it's not going to place. Let me start by saying Hamas is not, they're not the government of Palestine. That's the Palestinian Authority. And so the question that I keep thinking to myself as I listen to all of these, as we would call them in Yiddish, right? These Talmud Chachams, these geniuses, right? where's the Palestinian Authority in any of this? Because I don't see them included. Who's going to run the West Bank? Who's going to run Gaza? Who's going to run Palestine? How is this being broken up and separated out? You know, it's why, Ben, you're so right when you say, how is this a deal? How is this a peace treaty? What this is step one, stage one of a 20-part plan, but it did do and it effectuated two very, very significant things. One, the return of the hostages and the prisoners. So the hostages from Hamas back to Israel, the 20 that we saw, that broke my heart, that's for sure. And then you had, of course, the 1,500 prisoners that were returned to Palestine that were being held in Israeli prisons of Palestinian men. So I'm sitting there. That's number one. Number two, what he did accomplish was putting into the room basically the entire Middle East, and then some outside sources like England. He had Tony Blair there, who's a friend. He had the Prime Minister of Italy, who, I don't know, I guess, you know, amongst all those men, he noticed her and her blonde hair. You know, he put them all into a room and said that this has to stop. So I applaud him for being successful in doing that. But like you, I want to be very cautious, and I want to be still hopeful and optimistic. But I have to also be realistic and say Hamas has no intention at all. I saw it on the front page of the New York Post. They have no intention of surrendering their arms, which of course is part of the 20-point plan. They have no intention of doing that, despite when you hear it coming out of Trump and the administration, he turns around and he says that they've already agreed to it. Well, as Ben just said, and I acknowledge and I validate the comment, show me the signed agreement.
And Netanyahu has no intention of a two-state solution. He doesn't. That's not his intention. Donald Trump was asked, do you support a two-state solution? Or what's your view of a two-state solution? Like, to your point, isn't that one of the fundamental issues here? Will there be a free Palestine, and what does that look like? Living next to a free Israel in peace, side by side. Do you believe or do you not believe in a two-state solution? Like, if we're talking about a peace plan, isn't that rather than, should I get the Nobel Peace Prize? I want a Nobel Peace Prize. Shouldn't the issue be, well, what's the solution? Like, and this is a uniquely Trumpian coverage type of thing where in normal times, we would never treat this as a spike the football moment. How do I know that? Because former President Biden secured the release of 140 hostages. Trump's total is 28 while Trump's been in office. So Biden secured 83% of the hostage return. Did we throw parties for Biden for doing that? No. Did we say, let's give this guy a Nobel Peace Prize? No. Did Biden post weird memes of himself getting the Nobel Peace Prize? No. Why? Because if you know the history of this region and you know the dynamics, ceasefires are very tenuous at best. It requires a lot of work, and you have to approach it with kind of humility, with a deep historical understanding of the region and the various dynamics that are at play. And we're already seeing today. I mean, just look at the headlines from 24 hours after. And yes, it's being reported, but nobody's saying, wait a minute, like, so was there no deal? So Israel plans to half the aid into Gaza, accusing Hamas of violating the ceasefire with slow release of dead hostages. That was today. Israeli media outlets report that Israel decided to keep the Rafah crossing closed to Gazans and scale back humanitarian aid deliveries until Hamas returns the bodies of Israeli captive. Hamas had only returned 4 of the deceased hostages out of 28. There were 5 Palestinians who were shot and killed today Israel claims that it was a violation of the ceasefire. The Israeli Defense Force said troops opened fire on Palestinians in Gaza, killing 5 after the claims that they violated the terms of the ceasefire. So 5 human beings, 5 Palestinians dead, and Palestinians deny that there's any violation right there. Hamas has moved in to secure patrols over the neighborhoods, and anybody who they deem to be collaborators with Israel, they shot and killed in public executions and made people watch it. So I'm just so you have, like, objectively, right? You have Trump not saying 2-state solution or not solution. Netanyahu doesn't support a 2-state solution.
But Ben, worse than that, nobody's even talking about what you are talking about, what you and I were talking about as we were preparing for this show. Nobody's bringing to light the fact that, there's already a breakdown in the terms, in the 20 point, and we're not even 24 hours since the release. And yes, we all can turn around and say, like in my Substack, and I thank Midas for posting it. It was very rough for me to write it. It's emotional, right? Nobody's talking about 24 hours post the release of the hostages. Let's all acknowledge that was a great thing. Okay, that was yesterday. Good. But what's happening right now? Right now, that's going to upend this entire ceasefire. That's going to upend whatever this 20-point plan is that needs to be converted, as you and I were talking about before, needs to be converted into a peace plan. There is no plan here.
And that's why when you bring all the world leaders for an event like that, and you're like, look, the world leaders showed up, that's a good thing. The United States has been the leader of the free world. If Biden wanted, or anybody, Obama, George W. Bush, Reagan, whoever, like, it's not a, whatever, Trump, the United States post World War II was the leader of the free world. I mean, the entire world order was structured pretty much around the United States leadership. So when to me, Cohen, they're not going because of some fidelity to Trump. They are going because the United States of America is telling them to go. That meanwhile, behind the scenes, you have all of these countries basically plotting and planning what the new world order looks like, and with China's position in it, with a weaker United States, with European Union less reliant on the United States, Canada moving away from the US, Australia moving away. You have a restructuring taking place. And every time we use the capital that has been created, the soft and strong power over decades, we erode that with stuff like this. Trump's $18 trillion fraud. We brought in $18 trillion.
Yeah, it's $18 trillion. We made $1 trillion
yesterday
in a month.
Yeah, in a month. Just a
in
trillion.
1 month.
Where did it come from? Nobody knows. But just
where is it? Nobody knows that either.
Trump's making it up. But I mean, look, just take let's just take the data. We always come here with receipts at the Midas Touch Network. So let's come with receipts. I want to show you. Donald Trump is asked, how do you know Hamas is going to disarm? And Trump's like, I spoke to them. I spoke to Hamas. You think Donald Trump spoke to Hamas? He didn't speak to Hamas. And he said, sir, yes, we will disarm, sir. Which every time he says, sir, he's lying. Here, play this clip.
But we have told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently. But they will disarm. Do you understand me?
Yes. You say
because everyone says, oh, well, they won't disarm. They will disarm. And I spoke to Hamas, and I said, you're going to disarm, right? Yes, sir, we're going to disarm. That's what they told me. They will disarm, or we will disarm them. Got it?
Making up a fake conversation with Hamas. Like, he didn't have a conversation with, he's making it up.
All right, maybe I didn't speak to them, but I did order Hamas. Right? I mean, this is literally ridiculous. First of all, what did you do? You picked up the phone, you called. First of all, I didn't even know that there's communications going on. What did you pick up? Give me Hamas. Oh, hold on 1 second. 1. Okay. Next thing you know, yeah, hi, who's this? Yeah, it's Hamas. Hey, Hamas. It reminds me of like the movie with Adam Sandler, the Zohan, right? I want to speak to what's his name from Muchen Tuchen.
Yeah. Well, because this is what he said last week. What is your view on a two-state solution, right? The most fundamental question here to the deal, because the deal should have an outcome. Like, what's the outcome? Basic question, right? That corporate media should be playing this clip 100 times a day. Like, what's more fundamental than this clip I'm about to show you? What is your view on a two-state solution? Let's play it.
Two-state solution, sir. Just to follow up on that. What is your view now on a two-state solution for the?
I don't have a view. I'm going to go with what they agreed to.
I'm gonna go with what they didn't. Isn't this your deal? You wanted the birthday party for yourself in the Middle East.
Can we not see? Okay, can you do me a favor? Can you please put out the deal so that we then have the answer so that we can report it to the American people? It's funny. One of our brigaders, thank you for the laugh because I really needed one. He goes, yeah, hi, Hamas. I want a little tzatziki and some baba ganoush. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It is that ridiculous. It is so ridiculous. All right, we're going to go in there. Really? Really? And how are you going to identify an individual, whether they're Hamas or whether they're Palestinians? And again, I've been saying this all along, and I know you agree with it, Ben. Not all Palestinians are Hamas, right? I mean, there are innocent Palestinians that are being abused, as we saw today.
Tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians,
and more than tens of thousands. There's what just in Gaza, there's like over 2.5 million people. I mean, there's a ton of Palestinians that are caught in the same cray that that Israel is caught in, and that the United States is now caught into this thing. The whole notion that you could pick up a phone, call Hamas, and turn around and tell them, "Are you going to surrender?" Yeah, sure. And then to report on it. I mean, this is how stupid mainstream and cable news has actually gotten.
Right, because then when he was flying into the Middle East, he was asked by a reporter, so Hamas is rearming itself as a police force. They're shooting rivals. So what's your message to Hamas? Another pretty basic question. Hamas is reasserting control, right? You have IDF saying they're going to go back in and they're going to go attack Hamas. You're not supporting a two-state solution. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? So what's your view, Donald, on Hamas now rearming itself and Hamas saying, of course we're rearming ourselves. We didn't sign a deal saying we're going to disarm ourselves. Here, play this clip.
Of Hamas rearming, instituting themselves as a Palestinian police force, taking, shooting rivals. What is your message to Hamas?
They are standing because they do want to stop the problems, and they've been open about it, and we gave them approval for a period of time. You have to understand, they've lost probably 60,000 people. That's a lot of retribution. They've lost 60,000 people, and the ones that are living right now were, in many cases, very young when this all started. And we are having them watch that there's not going to be big crime or some of the problems that you have when you have areas like this that have been literally demolished. You have 2 million people, and probably it'll be less than that, but you have close to 2 million people going back to buildings that have been demolished. And a lot of bad things can happen. So we want it to be safe. I think it's going to be fine.
Mr. President,
Who knows for sure, Katie? But I think it's going to be fine.
Mr. President.
I think it's going to be fine. Who knows for sure? I don't even know what he even means. They were very little when this thing started. I mean, we know it was 2 years ago or so, but it wasn't like this happened. I mean, when he's saying when this started, when the conflicts between Israel and Palestinians and Israelis started. I'm not even sure what
3,000 years ago.
I'm not sure. What he's even talking about. And then he seems to acknowledge that basically all of Palestine has been destroyed. Which is not Hamas infrastructure, although Hamas infrastructure was destroyed, but also innocent Palestinians by the tens of thousands, innocent people who were, who were killed. And he goes, who really knows what's going to happen? And again, any former president Cohen and brigaders can make fake deals. It's not hard to make a fake deal. Like, the reason it's hard to do the right deal is because doing the right deals are hard. You can't, I mean, this whole thing is, I did a deal. Let's do a celebration, an appearance, and a deal, an appearance, and a deal.
And could you imagine if you made shit up? Could you imagine just right here on Political Beatdown if you made shit up, could you imagine how eventually the brigaders would turn around and say, Ben, why don't you take a couple days off?
Yeah.
Take the wife, take the baby, go take a walk in the desert somewhere, right? And then come back and speak to us like we're not half brain dead. We sat there, we watched the President of the United States in front of dead center, and I was happy to see America again, front and center, standing there with leaders from all over the world talking about peace in the Middle East. How beautiful would that be? And now let's figure out how to get there. Not turn around and say, well, I don't know, because less than 24 hours, Hamas started executing Palestinians in the streets there in Gaza based upon the fact that they believe that these individuals were cooperating with Israel and or the United States, or that they were anti-Hamas. There comes a point in time where you have to now say, well, what else needs to be done before, because according to our president, that they will never do anything like this for fear, for complete and total fear that we will go in there and annihilate them. Well, in under 24 hours, they've already shown that they really are not fearful and that we're just bullshitting ourselves for a feel-good moment.
Yeah, and that is where responsible leadership, it's easy to give people feel-good moments, but then you have to actually follow through and do the damn thing. And he's not someone who does the damn thing. He just makes announcements and he makes press releases. He doesn't do the thing. And that's, to me, like, not a I'm not being political here. It's just across every aspect of this presidency, it's the same fraud that he ran when he was in business. It's all one big freaking fraud. And you shouldn't have to be a Democrat or a Republican or an independent just to see it for yourself. And how is this helping Americans during a government shutdown when they're about to have their health care ripped away from them? We'll talk about that more when we come back. We got to take our first quick break. We'll quickly take this break. Reminder, subscribe to the Mea Culpa audio podcast. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's Substack. We'll be right back after this quick break.
You ever fall in love with something online and then you immediately panic about the price? Well, that's me, but with cufflinks. I know, I only wear shirts that need cufflinks, and my collection is ridiculous. I have presidential, Senate, congressional. I even have Captain America cufflinks. Now, I was online and I found this perfect limited edition pair. And then, I saw the price tag, and my wallet filed for a bank loan. Then, enter dupe.com, the site I didn't know I desperately needed. See, here's the magic. You take any product link, type dupe.com / before it, and suddenly, boom, it shows you the same or a super similar item for way less, like 60, 70, sometimes even 80% less. Legitimate stuff made in the same factories, just without the fancy logo that costs more than my cufflink collection combined. And it's not just cufflinks of furniture. Oh no. Fashion, shoes, jewelry, decor, it's all fair game. That ridiculous lamp that you've been stalking for weeks, Dupe will find it cheaper. That perfect pair of shoes, Dupe will find them for half the price, and you'll still look like $1 million. And for anyone buying professionally, designers, real estate folks, Dupe has a trade program where you get wholesale prices and you even earn 10% commission on purchases through your account. So basically, you save money and you make money. I call that a win-win. So here's the move. Go right now to dupe.com. That's DUPE.com, or type dupe.com / before any product URL. No account, no sign up, totally free. So stop overpaying, start decorating, start living, all thanks to dupe.com. You know, I still love a good night out, but I'm not always in the mood to drink. Luckily, I found a great alternative. Soul's out of office gummies. They give me that same light, happy buzz without the hangover, without sugar, or the 3 a.m. text to someone I swore I'd never talk to again. But here's the truth. I used to think relaxing meant a glass of something strong and a bad decision or two. Now it means nothing more than popping a gummy, throwing on some music, and actually remembering what I watched on Netflix. These things hit the sweet spot, make you mellow, happy, with zero drama. Soul is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. They specialize in delicious hemp-derived THC and CBD products that boost your mood and help you unwind. Their out-of-office gummies are my go-to, mild, relaxing, and totally customizable. You can take a microdose and keep it chill, or go for the 15 milligram if you're looking to see colors in high definition. And if you like to sip, not chew, try the out-of-office beverage, refreshing, alcohol-free, and perfect for pretending you're drinking responsibly, because this time you actually are. And everything's made from organically farmed, USA-grown hemp, vegan, gluten-free, low in sugar, and yes, it's federally legal. So bring on the good vibes and treat yourself to Soul today. And right now, Soul is offering my audience 30% off your entire order. So go to getsoul.com, that's GETSOUL.com, and use code BEAT, B-E-A-T. That's getsoul.com, promo code BEAT for 30% off. And trust me, this is the kind of buzz that never makes headlines. Thank you for that. Boom.
Welcome back. Great ad read. So during the break, Donald Trump's, I guess he's doing this Charlie Kirk posthumous Medal of Freedom. Here we have a clip from it. This is what Trump's talking about right now. He's talking about taking his shirt off at beaches. Here, play this clip.
Would you like to visit Argentina soon? There is an invitation for that.
What does that mean?
Do you like to visit Argentina soon?
I do. I would love to. I'm just a little busy. I would love to. I'd love to go to Argentina. I'd like to be like Biden. I'd like to go to the beach. You know, my legs are not quite as thin as his. My legs are slightly heavier. My arms are slightly larger. My body is a little bit larger than his. I'm not sure it would be appreciated on the beach, but I'm not going to take a chance. You won't see me in a bathing suit. You won't see in a bathing suit sitting on a beach in Argentina, falling down, not being able to lift a 3-ounce chair, meant for old people to lift, and he couldn't lift it, so we had a problem. He spent too much time on a beach. Somebody told.
We're still at the Argentina one, but that's, I mean, just weird, like weird behavior, huh?
It's just, again, saying something for the sake of saying it to be mean.
True.
It's just literally just saying it in order to be, to be mean. He will denigrate Joe Biden every single day until he's no longer in office. Plain and simple. He hates the man with a passion. And you got to say to yourself, why? When was the last time, Ben, even when you see a Democrat, be replaced by a Republican president, or a Republican be replaced by a Democratic president, what do they normally do? They write a letter, they put it in the desk. It's basically between the two, the former president to the new president. And what do they usually do? And write in there, I'm wishing you the best of luck. They may say something funny like, the job's not all that it's cut out to be, something like that. But this goes much further. This isn't about a private conversation, a private letter. This is a daily humiliation of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris every single day. And it's going to continue. And by the way, the saddest part, Ben, is that we're all numb to it already. And we're numb to it because we've already heard 10 and a half months of these sort of attacks on, former presidents.
But here's the thing. It's a humiliation. And I know you agree with this, on the entire country. And this is what Donald Trump doesn't realize. like if you're on a team together, like we should all still be on Team America, even if we had our disagreements. That's the way the country used to be. That's why even when George H.W. Bush would lose an election to Bill Clinton, they would stand shoulder to shoulder. You would have a peaceful transition of power. You would have respect, and they would work together, right? Even when after the Clinton's term, Clinton, George W. Bush would work together. Obama and George W. Bush would work together despite massive amounts of differences, and Obama campaigning against all the things that George W. Bush did wrong. Because even though we were Democrats and Republicans and independents, we were all one team. And you would never have a situation where Obama would give a speech, and regardless of how disastrous George W. Bush's foreign policy was in the Middle East, for example, you wouldn't have Obama go and give a speech as president and trash a former president.
Yeah.
It's just not how you would behave. So when Donald Trump is doing this for his own ego and for his own lack of confidence in himself, what this makes him feel good, it is a huge harm to the United States. Even in authoritarian regimes, bad authoritarian regimes, you don't see the leader go in front of the United Nations and spend the speech attacking governors that really investing huge amounts of time to attack your own country on the world stage. And bit by bit by bit, when you take that with all of the other disastrous trade war against the world, Trump actually attacking and invading states within the United States, this should not be a partisan issue. It just objectively makes the United States weaker. And one of the things that China's been able to accomplish, and why they've had so much leverage in the trade war against the United States, is that Donald Trump did the trade war against every other country in the world. And so it's hard to create leverage against China. For example, when you as the United States, maybe you have something that China doesn't have. Like, what do you have in the United States? Semiconductor chips and lots of kind of classified IP. That's one of your big assets, right? That you have at the United States. What does China have that they could use against it? Rare earth elements, REEs, that go into lots of modern technology. So you as the United States have something that is very valuable, right? And China has something very valuable. So how do you leverage these things of value? Donald Trump gave our semiconductor technology to China in multiple ways. One,
he handed the whole kit and
the whole
caboodle
thing
on a silver platter. In fact, it's not even silver; it's platinum. I mean, he
did it in two
to
ways. One, NVIDIA was able to sell to China, but NVIDIA had to pay the United States, like Trump, a 20% tax. And two, Donald Trump gave the technology to the UAE, to the United Arab Emirates, and it basically, and though Trump says it's not in exchange for, but then United Arab Emirates gave $2 billion to World Liberty Financial, one of Trump's crypto companies. And then everybody knew that UAE is then going to give the technology to China. So now we've given up our situation. So China now has the export controls dangling over our head. Then they're squeezing our farmers. And what's Trump talking about with China? What's his main thing? Freaking TikTok. What we actually banned here, we gave China leverage over something that should be banned based on what our Senate did, because in Trump's view, it can now become MAGA talk, and he and his rich friends can control the algorithm.
All of TikTok, the value that was given is $8 billion. $8 billion. And I want to talk about for 2 seconds something that Ben and I have talked about here on Political Beatdown, that we talk about on Midas Touch Network all the time. The United States GDP, $27.2 trillion. $8 billion isn't even a rounding error when you're talking about $27.2 $2 trillion. All right. It is so insignificant. And yet, here's the worst part about the whole thing. TikTok is collecting information on everybody, and it is owned by, yes, by China. I mean, the notion that we're allowing them to do it, China would never allow it to happen the other way around because, I don't know, Xi Jinping isn't stupid.
Let's just imagine, though, if the United States carried out the directive, and it would have upset a lot of people. I use TikTok. You use TikTok.
I use it.
Maybe I shouldn't use TikTok, but would it have been upsetting, right, if we lost it? But it was one of the bipartisan things that our Congress and the president came together, did studies, said this is really harmful to our national security interests. So imagine we get rid of TikTok, and then China would likely want to say, but come on, it's a big market. Maybe they would come back and say, let's cut a deal. And it would happen in reverse. Trump's given up every leverage to help our farmers, to help our manufacturers, to help anyone who exports anything to China, and as well those who import rare earth elements needed, which is everything, modern technologies. And he's focused on the TikTok deal. And it's just, again, I try to break this down because the corporate media narratives, they love to talk about, oh, Trump and Xi Jinping, and this is just how they are. It's like, not like, just look at the facts about what's actually happening. America's getting wiped out by China right now. China is strengthening its relationships across the country. And just think as they look to, expand their relations with Canada, as the US starts playing around with the USMCA and things like that. Imagine what happens when China gets those electric vehicles, as the US is pulling away from electric because Donald Trump doesn't like batteries, electric, wind, or solar. Imagine when BYD and all these Chinese companies, they're already doing it in many locations, they start flooding the zone with those, with their automobiles, and it's game over. And the US, we're like crushing ourselves from within, and it's just not being reported that way. It's just wild to me.
It's not
that
only
these
the
things
thing
are
that
so
it's-
obvious.
But it's not that it's not even being reported or widely reported. What's being reported is basically the exact opposite. It's like
Exactly.
if Ben turned around and said to me right now that he's wearing a pink shirt, okay, every single one of us would turn around and say one of two things. Either Ben's colorblind or he's lying. Plain and simple. All right. It's clearly not a pink shirt. Somewhere along the line, they turn around and they say it's a pink shirt. And then you get MAGA Mike Johnson getting up there and Caroline Levitt. And by the way, there was some wacky comment about that she has like machine gun lips. I don't even know what the hell that's about. And then you get J.D. Vance coming up there and saying it's a pink shirt. And then you get all of these Republicans because they got their talking points memo that says, only mention that the shirt is pink. Eventually, you turn around and you forget the fact that it's not pink. And then you're like, yeah, maybe it was pink. Truthfully, I don't remember. And then you say to yourself, wait. This is exactly what Stalin's playbook was all about, that you repeat the lie so often with such conviction that ultimately the lie becomes the truth. And then again, this is where networks like Midas Touch are so important as we move forward. A lot of people get angry. They're like, oh, you don't need to push Midas. We're all in on Midas. I understand that. But again, here's the important thing. With 5.5 million, it's a great number. You know what's better than that? 11 million. And all that requires that each of you bring one person to the network. And why do you want to bring them? All you have to tell them, do you want to hear truth? You want to hear truth from like 25, 30 different people on that network that speak truth to power, that aren't going to sugarcoat it, that aren't going to play partisan politics. Look, Ben and I don't agree on every single thing. Sometimes we agree on the end result, but let's just say the route to get to that end result may be different, but that's okay. That's okay, because at the end of the day, there's two things that we truly care about, and that's your rights and the Constitution. Because with that, this country will survive. Without it, we are no longer a democratic republic. So I'm asking each and every one of you, make sure you bring one person to the table. Because by doing that, we will grow a movement so big. We, and I mean all of us together, will grow a movement so big, we will be unstoppable. My biggest fear is that in a year from now, when the midterms come through, that we're not successful. So imagine if you think that the world today is chaotic, if you think America's all fucked up and that we're losing our rights, our tripartite system of government is somewhere in the goddamn toilet, well, you'd be right. So imagine how much worse it's going to be in 3 years. And that's assuming that there's ever going to be another election after the midterms. So do your part. Help us grow this.
I'm interested in seeing who your two-finger salute is going to go to. But what I want to talk about first as well, as we talk about the government shutdown, it's one of those things too, right? The way we've spoken, and I think in very simple terms about some of these structural issues with this ceasefire and how it's been reported. To me, I think you pull back when you look at this government shutdown, and you have to look at it almost as a fifth grade student who learns about the U.S. government for the first time, right? Where a party needs the other party's votes. In a democracy, they're supposed to speak with each other, right? Like at the most basic level, they're supposed to negotiate and reach compromise and find consensus. Again, I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about conceptually the way a government is supposed to function in a two-party or a multi-party system. That's the way it works. Republicans need Democrat votes in the Senate in order to pass their continuing resolution, which would have major bad impacts on this country and tens of millions, over 100 million Americans. We're talking about healthcare that's about to be ripped away from Americans. So when we come back, I want to talk about just this concept that MAGA Mike Johnson is asked. What's your strategy? You're just going to keep on doing what? Like, what are you going to do? And MAGA Mike today says, I don't have a strategy. What? You should be in every past shutdown. Both parties would be sitting there together. All right, let's do this. Let's trade off this. Let's figure out this. Can we get there? No, that's too much. Let's get this. No, I'm not going to do that. Can we do this? All right, fine. We'll reach a compromise. But right now under Trump, and you see why he's bankrupted so many things in his life, his strategy is don't even act like the other side exists. The issue is the other side does exist. So we'll talk about that when we come back from this break. A reminder, subscribe to the Mea Culpa audio podcast. My dogs are getting very animated before this commercial break. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel and subscribe to Michael Cohen's Substack. Perfect time for the dogs to bark because we're going to our first break anyway. We'll be right back after this quick break. Second break.
This podcast is sponsored by Smalls. Now look, listeners know my cat. Well, at least my part-time cat simply cannot live without Smalls. And for a limited time, you can get 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/beat. Look, let me be clear. Smalls cat food, it's made with preservative-free ingredients you'd actually find in your fridge. There's no weird filler, no mystery meat dust. And that's why Cats.com named Smalls their best overall cat food. Starting with Smalls, it's easy. You share a few details about your cat's diet, health, and preferences, and they send a personalized sampler. I did a taste test with Marlo, 2 bowls side by side, and he didn't even glance at the old stuff. But since then, he shows up every morning like it's room service. So seriously, what are you waiting for? Give your cat the food they deserve. And for a limited time, because you're a Political Beatdown listener, get 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head right now to smalls.com/beat. One last time, that's 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head right now to Smalls, SMALLS.com/beat. And trust me, if Smalls can impress a cat that doesn't even live with me, it's the real deal.
It's the real deal. It's the real deal.
Yeah, let me tell you, that
Talking
cat
about
jumped on my table the other day, knocked my coffee over. Son of a gun turned around, was looking, he was like, feed me. I was like, Jesus.
Speaking about the real deal, though, I mean, Donald Trump fancies himself as a deal maker, but he's good at announcing a thing, I guess, and then not doing it. He's good at making up numbers. $18 trillion. We're going to reduce healthcare prices by 1,600%, which is impossible. And to your point, whether it's Stalin or Goebbels or whoever, we're talking about the lie is so outrageous and insane as to be so big that people are, it does something with the wiring of people's brains when they hear it, right? I'm reducing healthcare prices by 1,600%. So that means if the drug was $1, the pharmaceutical company is going to pay me $1,600. Like,
Yep.
I'm going to, that's what the plan. That's not a plan.
I can't wait.
I got something bigger and better than Obamacare. Okay, well, what's your plan? What is it? Most favored nations. What do you mean by that? Okay, well, the prescription drugs in America will be as low as the lowest price that pharmaceutical company charges in another country at the lowest price. So if the lowest price for drug X is $1 in Canada, then that pharmaceutical company must charge $1 in the United States. Well, wouldn't that be great? But Trump announced that was happening in May. That's not happening. It's just fraud. It's just a lie. Healthcare costs are going up. And the issue is, you look at each state. I just saw a study in Pennsylvania, Cohen. On average, the monthly premiums in Pennsylvania will go up 103% if the Affordable Care Act subsidy is not extended. Just think about if numbers can go up 103%. They don't go in the opposite direction. So I just want you to think about what that means for you if you're paying double, if you're paying triple, if you're paying quadruple. What family making $65,000 to $85,000 a year will be able to pay $25,000 to $30,000 in healthcare costs? Without
certainly
the
not if
subsidy,
you're earning $60,000 or below. That's for sure. In fact, even if you earned $100,000, you still couldn't afford it.
If you earned 150 and you have kids, how could you afford that? So the issue is, we know that there are, yes, problems in the Affordable Care Act, but by and large, it's popular. But there are problems.
Okay, so there's errors in it. Oh, fine, that's why these policies take forever in order to perfect. So you take what's wrong, only the parts that are wrong, and you figure out how to make it better. What you don't do is you don't throw the whole thing into the fucking toilet, burn it all on fire. Just because you have a creaky door in your house doesn't mean you light the house on fire. It doesn't mean you knock it down with a bulldozer, right? You fix the fucking door. I mean, I don't know. This is so great. And Ben, when you ask me who's getting the two-finger salute, again, it's got to go to MAGA Mike Johnson. This asshole gets up there. If I hear one more time him blaming the Democrats solely on this and the fact that he shut down the government, here's what I would do if I was Democrats and they have a handful of Republicans. We should all just show up. Just all show up and turn around and put onto the table removing Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House, unless he's going to show up and do it. And in fact, what I would want to do is I want cameras inside I want mainstream media cameras inside chambers as we go through this. And as we also go through the conversation about how to reopen the government, how to negotiate that. Do it in front of the entire country. Don't just do it backdoor where we get the final report. Oh, it's just not happening. Everybody walked away. No. I want to see who's walking away. All right. I want to see that it's not my member of Congress. It's not my senator that's walking away, because God forbid it's one of them. I assure you, I'm going on the attack to make sure that they never get elected, not even to dog catcher in the area. Do it in front of the American people. By the way, it should be in front of the American people, because who's suffering right now? Not them. It's us. So, MAGA Mike Johnson, fuck you again.
When I had Leader Jeffries on, and when I had Chuck Schumer on, I had both of them on, and to their credit, separately, they said, they said what you said. They said, let's meet, let's do it in public, let's have all the cameras here, and let's go. That was exclusively broken on the Midas Touch Network. And then MAGA Mike's response, I kid you not, we're done with that. He goes, that would be theatrics, was a MAGA Mike quote. Theatrics. We in the Republican Party don't like theatrics. So why would we do that? It's theatrics.
Right.
And
they don't like theatrics.
They don't like the Donald Trump and MAGA Mike don't like the theatrics. But I'll tell you what.
Then why is he wearing makeup?
I believe the American people. I believe the American people, at the most basic level, especially as Donald Trump has ordered Republicans not to even show up to work. Like, that's a pretty bad move. Like, I think at the most basic level, people get that dynamic. I think people also get the dynamic that Trump's been bragging about how powerful he is, that he controls all aspects of government. He controls the presidency, Congress, and the courts. So why would the American people blame Democrats who don't control it? And the whole narrative has been Democrats are weak and Trump controls everything. So why would you blame the Democrats for this shutdown? And ultimately, fundamentally as well, we're dealing with people's health care. And so they can try, the MAGAs, to pivot and blame immigrants or Peruvian transgender people, which I don't even understand. Or today they went back to able-bodied video gamers. They did that line. They rolled out that line. You know, it's all these able-bodied video game people who are taking too much money. I mean, y'all can keep doing that. But at the end of the day, because Republicans are all in their Club Rose Garden, Mar-a-Lago, bailout Argentina world, what they've lost sight of is they just think that this is like a Democratic talking point, healthcare. Like, oh, you're just doing like the way we on the Republican side talk about 18 trillion. Like, that's just your thing. 20 million people with healthcare. I got it. Like, that's the game. No. It's like, this isn't a Democratic talking point. This is the state of the country that 20 million Americans are going to lose their health care, and that most Americans are seeing, whoa, my healthcare costs are this. Now it's going to be that. I can't afford that. So what are we going to do? I want to keep my healthcare. And Donald Trump and MAGA Mike are saying, you know what? It's the fault of transgender people. You know what? It's the fault of immigrants. And people are like, what are you talking about? I need my freaking healthcare. Can you address it? And MAGA Mike goes up there with that smirk. Well, you know, we don't have a plan. Here, play the one of we don't have a plan. Here, play that clip.
Yeah, Manu, go ahead.
You've been doing this every single day, coming up here trying to pressure Senate Democrats. They've been not budging. They've blocked this bill time and time again. So at what point, for the good of the country, do you need to change your strategy to try to negotiate a deal with them?
It's a great question. Manu asks, why don't I change my strategy? I don't have any strategy, Manu. I'm doing the right thing, the clearly obvious thing, the traditional thing. That's exactly what Chuck Schumer voted for in March of this year and gave impassioned speeches was the right and only thing. I don't have anything to negotiate.
Then behind him, you had Congresswoman Lisa McClain, who's like,
yeah, right.
I'm like, what are those face gestures? Like, what the hell? And then she goes up, she's like, all right, MAGA Mike, let me go. Watch me do it. Here's what she did. Here, play this clip.
But the way to end this shutdown is really, really simple. Pass the bipartisan clean funding bill that the House approved weeks ago. The Republicans voted to keep the government open. Call your Democratic senators. They're voting to keep it shut, not us.
Cohen,
Again,
the way
it's
to deal with this issue, Cohen.
that faux outrage, that theatrics. So she was definitively, a theater major, in college. It's not us. We have nothing to do with it. I mean,
We have nothing to do with it. Right in the mouth.
I mean, at some point in time, again, remember something that Ben and I had said to each and every one of you? 3-word slogans. Keep it simple. And the new slogan that we need to be talking about, GOP betrayed you. Because that's what they did. When you go to the grocery store and you're paying now 30% more on your hamburgers or a steak or any meat, chicken, whatever it might be, 30% more. When you're going to the big box in order to buy school supplies for your kids, or they need a new pair of sneakers or what have you, 20-some-odd% more. How do you afford this? It's like things were tough in the first place, and now they're just making it impossible. And just in case you needed a new couch, fuck that. Not a chance. You know what you're going to end up doing? You're going to end up learning how to knit so that you can knit one of those things that my grandmother used to make, those like quilts and so on. And you're going to start throwing it everywhere in your house. Because nobody's going to be able to afford new furniture.
It's again, though, the way she's even, just those two clips, we'll leave with this. MAGA Mike saying we have no strategy to try to find a compromise with Democrats. Like you heard him in his own words, right? Then you had the Congresswoman, MAGA Republican Congresswoman Lisa McClain, who just like runs up to the mic and like, I don't even know what she's doing with the mic, but she's just like, just sign the damn thing, sign it. Just think, have you ever like done a deal with someone who approaches you and goes, just sign it? I don't care what you think, just sign the damn thing. I don't know if they're living in a Trump Apprentice or they're living in some like fictional movie about how things go down. But again, at the most basic level in our government, in the form of government that I like in the United States before, Trump did this to it, it was always, look how Biden had to do it. How did Biden pass the continuing resolutions? He'd call the Republicans into the White House. He would say, Kevin McCarthy, what do you need? And in fact, the Inflation Reduction Act and all of Biden's policies in the aggregate that Trump's dismantling helped red states more than blue states. Yeah. Red states got far more benefits and more manufacturing projects. So Biden would deliver for the red states. You'd keep the government open. We have a compromise, but that was taken advantage of. And now you have the exact opposite. So I'll leave everybody with that. Stay strong. No kings. Protests happening October 18th. Do not let the Trump regime scare you. Peaceful protests. Be out there peacefully protesting. If you can't attend, let others know in your world who can attend that they should be there. I'll be at one of them. We're in this together. Okay, it's good. I'm
going to one as well, and I plan on using Midas Touch to upload at certain points.
And we need to have the largest peaceful mass mobilization in United States history on the 18th. I'm confident that we will have that. Thanks, everybody, for watching. A reminder, subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel. It's at The Michael Cohen Show. You search that on YouTube. Subscribe to his Substack, Michael Cohen's Substack. Subscribe to the Mea Culpa audio podcast. Subscribe here to our YouTube channel at the Midas Touch Network. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time on Political Beatdown. Shout out Midas Mighty.
Boom.